Right, YouTube, it's Shadow King Nazru, and I'm here to do my long overdue review of Infinite Stratos. Now, this is the third time I've had to record this because I keep getting interrupted, so I'm gonna try to blitz through this thing before someone else gets another opportunity to interrupt me again. Now, I watched Infinite Stratos a few months ago because I thought it would be an interesting anime to watch. It was under the genre of mechs, romantic comedy, and harem. Some things, well, two of those three things I'm interested in. So I figured I'd give it a shot. But unfortunately, I was only able to make it to 7 episodes before I decided to drop it. But I did say that I was going to review it, um, so I'm going to do it anyway. Why I didn't review it sooner, you might ask? Life. Let's just say life got in the way. But anyway, apparently the premise of Infinite Stratos is that in the near future, a scientist develops a mechanized exoskeleton, and because it's so very powerful and could threaten international stability, the nations of the world created a treaty so that none of these mechs, called the Infinite Stratos, would be used for warfare. They can only be used for like sports events and whatnot. And apparently, since only women could pilot these things, it caused a political shift into a matriarchy. I would argue that it would take a lot more than that to create such a shift, where the world is mostly ran by women. I'd say it still would be a mix between men and women running governments, but let's not get into that before this gets too political. So anyway, our series follows Ichika Omihara, who is apparently the only boy who could pilot these mechs, and thus he would go to the school full of girls where they could pilot these mechs as well. And naturally, you expect that because it's an all-girls schools and they being introduced to a boy, they are very thirsty for him, and you would be right. That's part of the comedy. So let's talk about some of these characters. Now, Ichika was the younger brother of Chufuyu, I believe her name was, who was an ace pilot, but due to him being kidnapped, I don't remember the details, and I'm not going to bother watching those episodes again. She was forced to forfeit the match to rescue her brother, and he's felt regret over that and felt like he was the weaker brother. And in a way, he's kind of right. But let's get into that, shall we? Despite wielding a seemingly powerful mech that revolves around using a sword and having certain abilities, he's not very good at it. He's very oblivious towards things that a lot of Infinite Stratos pilots knew. A lot of the students that's what's established, which is to the chagrin of both some of his classmates and to his sister, who serves as a homeroom teacher, and she berates him. She berates him and even physically hits him. Which, there's a lot of physical humor in this, which I'm not a big fan of. At first I felt like they were being a bit too harsh on him, but his incompetence just made me grow apathetic towards him. And his personality, he's basically just a big, nice guy who tries not to cause too much trouble, but just like certain circumstances lead to put him in awkward situations, so we say the least. So honestly, he's just like your typical bland harem protagonist. It's nothing all too special, aside from being the only character who can pilot. And with a personality like that and his incompetence as a skilled pilot, you wonder, aside from him being the only boy, why these girls are interested in him. a couple of them do have an explanation. Let's get into them, shall we? There's Hoey um, Shinano, I believe that's what her name was. Yeah. She's a childhood friend of Ichika, and they used to practice kinja when they were kids, and this was the first time that they've met each other in a long while. And she's held feelings for him, but due to like awkward circumstances, they she comes to think of him as a pervert, and she goes very aggressive towards him. Um, and she also gets jealous every time he's slightly cordial towards other girls. So yeah, she's basically our tsundere character. Now, tsundere characters can be interesting, entertaining sometimes, but that's depending on how they handle. Hoey is not one of these characters. I mean, she's the typical, always acts angry at the character despite the misunderstandings, even though it would take like a minute to like explain the circumstance and they can ease the situation. And she also physically abuses him whenever she thinks he's acting wrong or she gets angry. So yeah, I'm not really a big fan of this character. Then we got Cecilia Alcott, who's a British representative for the Infinite Stratos and an elite pilot, and she has a bit of an ego to her, even being stunned and somewhat appalled that Ichika was also managed to defeat an instructor like she did, although his was more of an accident. He just dodged and the instructor knocked themselves out. And she feels like he doesn't give her give her the respect that she deserves as an ace pilot. She's kind of has an elitist attitude, and when he gets nominated for class representative, she objects to it, and they challenge it to a duel. And like I said before, he's not all that good, so he loses due to a technicality because his suit runs out of power. But she ends up falling for him anyway. She is honestly a better character than Hoey, but Hoey doesn't really set up a high bar, so it's pretty much whatever. Then we got Rin Fan, at least that's what they call it in English dub. It was Lin Huang Foy, something along those lines. She's another childhood friend, coming from China, and is a China representative. Odd that an anime would have two childhood friends, but whatever. Um, her family owns a restaurant, and Ichika really liked the food. In fact, when they were kids, he said that he would really like to try her food when became a really good cook, which she took meaning that if she became a really good cook, that Ichika would fall in love with him, and it was a misunderstanding, and he also forgot the promise, which really upset her, and she wanted to fight him, which is again another fight he loses. Yeah, he doesn't really make much progress, if at all, as a pilot during the 7 episodes that I watched. So I don't really hold Ichika in high esteem. I mean, at first I was trying to cut him a break because he seemed like a nice guy and maybe he was going to develop, but after a while I just got sick of him just being so incompetent, so bland. But eventually they make up. Then there's hold on, let me check the names again. There's Charlotte Dunaway. Yes, she's a first year French representative, and she, well, originally described herself as a boy, to, due to the request of her government. I forgot the details of why they did it, and I'm not watching the anime again. But yeah, she originally presented herself as a boy, but Ichika later finds out that she's a girl. And fortunately, she's like the only girl that I saw so far that's actually nice to him. I mean, that and doesn't berate and abuse him. So yeah, so far she's like the best character I've seen out of the 7 episodes that I've watched. Um, I mean the whenever they fight, it was due to practice, and again he still loses because, like I said, Ichika sucks as a pilot. But at least she was nice, and at least there was some kind of interesting backstory with the whole French people trying to do this cover up. But it's nice. Then we had the final girl that I got introduced to, called Laura Bodewig. Now she's a Germany representative and was part of the Super Soldier program. And she was a huge admirer of Ichika's brother, but due to her forfeiting and finding out it was because of him, she actually started to have resentment towards him and try to take out her brother. But that plan didn't go through, and again they also had to fight, and he loses. Uh, but she does eventually fall in love with him. I didn't see the episode where she falls in love with him, but yeah, I pretty much guessed that's where it was going. And there were other girls that show up later on, one from like Russia and another one from Japan. But I didn't get to those episodes yet, so I can't really talk about them. Uh, as far as Loa was concerned, the whole backstory of her being a super soldier from Germany that admired Ichigo's sister and feel like this and blaming her Ichika for her falling short of her potential, that was somewhat mildly interesting, but it wasn't really enough for me to go through. There was also this one part where the school gets attacked by these automatic mechs. Um, so apparently they thought it was like some sort of terrorist organization trying to that has some agenda. I heard that they did explore that a little bit from other people who've watched the anime, but it didn't go where it needed to go to reach its full potential. So it was kind of considered a wasted opportunity. But yeah, those were everything I had to say about Infinite Stratos. All in all, it's not for me. I I don't like most of these characters, and I feel like some of the stories are like waste of potential, and it feels very repetitive. But if you want to watch it, that's okay. It's only like 2 seasons. I think they're all like 13 episodes each, or maybe 12. I don't know. Um, but yeah, for me, I can't get into the series. I'll just try to find some other anime that I can get into. So those were all my thoughts, and maybe next time I'll get into some of the other animes I promised to review at some other point. This is King Nazri, and I'll catch you guys later.